I feel slightly self-conscious doing a review and commentary on my own work, like this is supposed to be the job of anyone except me. Even if I'm really critical, it may still come across as ego masturbation, but screw it. At this point, it's habit. I began writing Corrupt Authority in 2008, the year in which I felt the most rebellious against governing authority. This was the year that Code Geass came out in America, and also the year we elected the most leftist president to date. Naturally, my protagonist gravitated towards chaotic neutral on the alignment chart. So, why did it take me 8 years to finish? Well, at some point I stopped being pissed off, probably when I graduated college, and you need some sort of drive to keep you motivated. Living an adult life really restructured how I devoted my energy, and Corrupt Authority fell off my radar until I dug it up 7 years later. You can be a lot more objective about your own writing if you haven't seen it for a long time. I decided that 20-year-old me had done a pretty good job so far, and this was a project worth finishing. I say this now to encourage those of you who have a bunch of half-finished works lying around in your hard drive. Some of it may be crap, but there may be gems worth polishing amidst the junk. Right, on with the review. I'll summarize to help me remember stuff and give commentary as it comes. So the story begins in the mindset that becomes Gen's, the self-assured obsession that Pokemon have become victims and that trainer supremacy over them must end. Mind you, this is quintessential social justice behavior, and the term had yet to be coined for at least another 3 years. This radical idea is the driving force behind what ultimately became the G.R.I.P decrees, which Japan's military police have to enforce. This sucks for Hibiki because he was just on the brink of starting his trainer journey, and it really sucks for Kenta because it's officially become his job to take Pokemon from trainers. Or at least it would have, if not for the Sylph incident. Here, I'd like to clarify something. The police took on an antagonistic role throughout my story, but it's not because I think cops are evil. It's their bosses I have a problem with. And looking back, I wish I had communicated that better. The match in the opening scene represents the last time in this alternate universe that the best and strongest Pokemon will be allowed to legally compete. Kenta already knows this, which is why he's in the audience, trying to save her every moment. Once it's over, he gets a call from his captain, and has to leave his friend Curtis for an impromptu military mission. A word about Curtis. He's an original character that Kenta's supposed to know through his history with Kurt. Thing is, Kurt already had a granddaughter named Maisie, so why did I replace her with an adoptive grandson from America? Well, mainly because I was trying to avoid shipping Kenta x Maisie and maintain focus. But also because Kenta's now 19, and there's like a 10-year age gap between them. It would have been weird. Admittedly, Kurt adopting an orphan from another continent is also weird. I bet I could have handled that one better. Also, the early story contains fake Pokemon, as though that's supposed to be a theme of the novel. It's not, which isn't a major issue, but when I'm setting first impressions, I should be more selective in the future. Anyway, Kenta meets up with Lieutenant Shin, and here's where we learn of his immense distaste for big government. Sylph Corporation's continued development of the Master Ball has caught the attention of the imperialist elites, and Kenta fears that they will utilize the Master Ball's design to seize unprecedented power. In his mind, it's like, I am the big bad government! I have the biggest and best balls, which I've used to capture the biggest and best Pokemon! Now obey me, pawns, for I am mighty! It's a future he'll prevent if he can. It's pretty libertarian. Funny how easy it is to make Pokemon political. Meanwhile, Hibiki's just found out that his Pokemon journey's been delayed until he graduates high school, and it'll be a watered-down version in which he'll only have 2 Pokemon at any given time. He's pretty mad about it, and he rails against Kenta for not warning him that his hopes and dreams were doomed. Naturally, when he hears that Kenta died in the Sylph mission, he's mortified. The next few months mark the worst times of his life. As you know, Kenta's not really dead. As winter gives way to spring, he returns one rainy night and spirits Hibiki away with him. Kenta declares that he's gonna start a revolution with his stolen Master Ball, and he wants his brother's help. I'm fairly certain that this is everybody's dream at some point or another, to have someone they admire approach them with a hand extended saying, "Come with me, and together we'll change the world." On a side note, Phoenix Rising is coming out right after this audiobook. It's my favorite fanfic of all time, and already its influences are showing. We've got the fake Pokemon, and now the protagonist returning from death. There's more to come on that. Before they do anything, Kenta reveals his plan to Hibiki. Having read the story, you now know that it went something like this. Phase 1. Have Kurt the Craftsman duplicate the Master Ball as much as he can. Phase 2. Gather a militia of trainers, including criminals, to aid the uprising. Phase 3. Obtain the Snag Machine. Phase 4. Procure the aid of some legendary Pokemon. And Phase 5. Expose the imperialist government on national television. If they abandon their slow takeover and resort to force, declare war. With Hibiki now on board, they fly to Azalea Town, but not before Kenta's first encounter with the newly equipped Sky Patrol. The Peacekeeper sends out a Tyranitar to take down Kenta's Salamence, and Kenta only wins because his Pokemon knows Brick Break. It goes to show that there's been a major power shift from the civilian population to the governing authority. Here, we're also reminded that Kenta is dressed like Brendan Birch to remain anonymous, kinda like the Guy Fawkes mask. Actually, dressing as Red probably would have fit the narrative better, because unlike Brendan, Red rejected an official league position. But then again, Kenta is posing as the person he believes Brendan should be. As the story goes on, he eventually drifts away from being Brendan and uses his own name to kick off the revolution. Until then, this is not really a story about Master Gold, but some guy with Hoenn Pokemon dressed as a Hoenn idol. So they make it to Azalea, and there they meet up with Curtis, who reveals to them that Kurt's been thrown in jail for continuing to work on unregistered Pokeballs. This tells us that the government uses a marking system to keep tabs on everyone's Pokemon, and at any time they can teleport them away. Thus, Pokeballs created outside the system are illegal. If you've been picking up on Second Amendment overtones up until now, congratulations! You've seen through my thinly veiled allegory. Kenta goes to free Kurt, using his old police sergeant uniform to get past the local Officer Jenny. In the process, he offers a lockpick tool to the local Team Rocket prisoners, as a token of truce. They later escape, and make it back to their hideout in Mahogany Town. Once Kurt is liberated, Kenta meets back with Hibiki, and the younger brother learns more about how he acquired the Master Ball and got shot by his captain. Incidentally, there are two MacGuffins in this story, the Master Ball and Kenta's kidnapped Typhlosion. The former is why he's fighting defensively, and the latter is why he went on offense. Curtis calls Kenta back to Kurt's residence, where he reveals that the Master Ball has properties very similar to that of the Pokemon Magneton. He then flips on the television, which contains a repeating broadcast reminding trainers which Pokemon are off-limits for catching. Magneton is called out by name, and Kenta becomes fearful that G.R.I.P has discovered that they are the secret ingredients to making Master Balls. He and Hibiki fly to the northeastern region of Kanto, where the largest natural population of wild Magneton lives. On the way, Kenta continues the story from his past, about how he recovered from his bullet wound in that very area. Once again, there are a couple of things that, looking back, I wish I had edited. I like the ongoing flashback narrative itself, but there are little parts of it that challenge the reader's suspension of disbelief. Parts like Boris the hiker. First, he's a Japanese guy with a Russian name, which is weird. Second, when the Magneton swarm interrupted the battle with Kenta, he couldn't run away. Forget that he's drunk, he's a hiker! Third, he owned a Pupitar that knew Earthquake. I don't care how many of the Magneton may have known moves like Mirror Shot or Flash Cannon. One Earthquake would have downed any of them that didn't have the Sturdy ability. I'm a Pokemon nerd, can you tell? Another thing I dislike is the fantastic coincidence. Kenta and Hibiki just so happen to arrive right when the military police are storing dead Magneton in a truck. Remember, it's been months since the Sylph incident. And it just so happens right then that they're drawn into a battle with none other than Stephen Stone of the Hoenn region. Yes, he's sympathetic to Steel-type Pokemon, but I never explain what he's doing all the way out there in Kanto. I could have suggested that he started a crusade against the Magnet Pokemon killers, and this was just another day at work. It might have made this encounter somewhat more excusable. But I didn't. Oh well, it's just a fanfic. Stephen's alignment in this story is probably true neutral. After he works with Kenta to retrieve the bodies of the Magneton, he decides not to aid him in his revolution. Though he's fought the military police for killing Magneton, he's still compliant with the G.R.I.P decrees, believing a return of most Pokemon to nature is better for peace. He's even given up his Metagross, his signature Pokemon, assured that it's being rehabilitated into the wild. For Kenta, losing Steven's support makes this a mixed success, but he takes what he can get. From there, he heads to the nearest Pokemon fan club to turn other true neutral people into chaotic people like him. I've mentioned alignment several times now, so for those of you unfamiliar with the concept, there's a range of 9 alignments that everyone fits into somewhere. The vertical goes from lawful to chaotic. The horizontal goes from good to evil. Like, you could be a lawfully good person, like Superman, or you could be an evil person who uses the law for your own evil purposes, like those who kill Islamic apostates because Sharia law lets them. Likewise, you could be a chaotic good person who breaks the law to do what's right. Think Edward Snowden. Or you could be chaotic evil, where you basically do whatever you want no matter who it hurts. And then in between is every neutral. Brendan is lawful neutral because he feels the G.R.I.P decrees are destined to become Japan's new way of life, even if they're unpalatable at the moment. Hibiki is neutral good because his focus is on giving Kenta brotherly love and support. Jen is arguably neutral evil, since her self-perceived good intentions led her down this hellish path, but Lefty the Hitman is probably closer. Actually, as I think about it, Kenta was probably closer to chaotic good at this point in the story. It wasn't until he destroyed Crane Laboratories and attacked the professor that he really lost his status as a good person. I started out wanting him to be chaotic good all the way through, but that just wasn't to be. You can't follow this kind of path without getting your hands dirty. Speaking of which, Kenta arrives at the Vermilion Pokemon fan club and baits them into fighting him. When they're nice and pissed off, he proceeds to show them how weak they've become by one-shotting their Pokemon with Earthquake. Afterward, he apologizes for being a dick and promises to help get their best Pokemon back if they support his rebellion. The next week is filled with more fan club visits in other regions, and old flames are rekindled. Just before the mission to steal the snag machine, Hibiki gets his first look at the stress weighing upon Kenta. It's a brief passing depression, but it's the start of a continual degradation that becomes more apparent as time goes on. Kenta, it turns out, is not some great hero with a smile of perpetually white teeth and unshakable confidence. He's a young idealist who's slowly realizing he may have bitten off more than he can chew. But there's no going back now. The brothers travel to the Ore Desert, where they hope to complete Phase 3 of Kenta's plan by procuring the snag machine. For those of you who are too young to have ever played Pokemon Colosseum on the GameCube, rest assured you haven't missed much. The concept of a machine that can take anyone's Pokemon you want is intriguing, but Colosseum is a far cry from Pokemon Grand Theft Auto. Whatever, the point is, Kenta needs that machine to turn the tables when G.R.I.P inevitably corners him. The brothers bluff their way inside Crane Laboratories, and manage to get as far as Crane's secret basement before discovering that the snag machine inside is a phony. So, why does the lab lock up a fake version of its most sacred device? Well, think of it this way. If you lived in a town where everybody already knew you had a safe in your house containing blocks of solid gold, how much confidence would you have in the safe? Needless to say, Kenta goes ballistic when he discovers he's been tricked. His anger turns to desperation when Mikeru's Glaceon takes down his Salamence, and he's forced to reveal his secret Pokemon, Zapdos. He and Hibiki retreat empty-handed, leaving the lab a wreck from battle. Yeah, it goes about as badly as it possibly could have.